Alright, guys. I think after this episode of Call of the Night today, that I can safely say that this is definitely the show I'm enjoying the most this season. It's wild, honestly. I'm kind of falling in love with this show a little bit, to be honest. Hopefully, I don't have a vampire suck my neck, but I'm loving this series. To say that this show is not a vibe and a half is an understatement, dude. I'll tell you right now, the second we got to the scene where they were flying through the sky again, and that one song dropped, I was like, oh, dude, this is my favorite show this season, isn't it? I love this. This this show is a vibe and a half, guys. And every single time I watch it, I always just have a big smile on my face because I'm like, yeah, I like this show. I see what the hype was about for this series. So let's get in and talk about Call of the Night episode 2 today. So our episode begins immediately where our first one left off, with Ko kind of reconfirming our story so far about how when a vampire sucks your blood, if you're in love with them, you can get turned into a vampire. And we kind of reconfirm what our story is about here, with Ko declaring that he's going to fall in love with Nazuna and have her suck his blood so he can become a vampire. And her confirming with him that she really likes his blood, so that's why she's going along with it. And like I said in my last week's episode, it's kind of a different take, you know? Maybe I have a guilty pleasure for vampire series, guys, but I kind of like that take. It's different, you know? Because normally they would just suck your blood and boom, you're a vampire already. But no, we got to have a little bit of stipulations. You know, we got to have a story. And I just kind of like that. So now we're back in present day. It is night 2, actually, and Ko is already, I wouldn't say he's in love, but he's already kind of enamored with her. Let's be real. After an experience like that in the previous night, like, who wouldn't be extremely interested in this other person? So he goes out to look for Nazuna, but he can't find her anywhere. Like, anywhere. This man is running around town, going crazy, checking everywhere, but she's nowhere to be found. He starts freaking out a little bit, too, you know? He's kind of worried. And she's like, oh, yeah, sorry. Because they do eventually find each other. She just flies on down, which she always makes a great entrance, by the way. In every scene, she always makes a great entrance, just coming from the sky mysteriously. She's like, oh, sorry, I was out looking for other people's blood. He's like, wait a minute, what? What? You're trying to take other people's blood? I thought we had an agreement here. And she's like, oh, well, it's no big deal, right? It's just a meal to me. Like, you wouldn't just eat rice with no bread or something, right? It's like, what's the difference? And of course, Ko's getting a little jealous already. Like I said, he's already a little bit enamored, but after that experience, guys, can you really blame him? He, I guess you could say, might have like a little crush at this point, which is perfectly reasonable. And they start arguing about that a little bit. And he's like, well, whatever. Anyway, we need a way to communicate with each other better. Do you have a phone? Like, let's exchange numbers. And she's like, oh, phone? I don't have a phone. What's a phone? And she remembers all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute. Let's go back to my place for a second. So they do, and she's digging through her stuff. And this show is very purposeful with their angles. Let's just say that, guys. Like, we'll talk about the ending animation in a bit, but anyway, she's looking for a phone that she actually does have, and she finds it, and she has one of those old big-ass brick phones from, like, the 90s, guys, and it's pretty fucking funny. He's like, what the hell is that? She's like, it's a phone, duh. Isn't bigger cooler? And I'm like, maybe in the 90s, but... And she starts saying, well, I got this in case I ever needed it, but then they came out with the smaller ones immediately after, and I was like, I can't be bothered with it. And man, I could just imagine having to carry that piece of shit around with you all day. You'd have to hang it from your belt loop or something. That'd be kind of funny. But she's like, well, anyway, I'm exhausted from looking around town all night. Why don't we get some sleep? And like I said, guys, this show is very purposeful with its scenes I've seen to notice. Because she gets into her bed and she's like, well, what are you doing? Well, what are you waiting for? Why don't you get in with me? And they're both laying there, and Ko's nervous. He starts thinking to himself, like, I don't love her just yet, but I think anyone would be embarrassed in this situation. And I think that's kind of true, guys. You would just be in a situation like this and be like, oh, I'm kind of nervous. Like, whoa, what are we doing? And she, of course, obviously wants to suck his blood, but he's like, no, why don't you just go suck someone else's at this point, What do you need mine for? Obviously still hung up about the fact that she was doing that. So she kind of just looks him straight in the eyes and tells him, all right, look, I was actually looking for you two. I was just really embarrassed to say it. And of course that completely tears down his walls. He's like, well, I guess you could get my neck. And it's kind of great, guys, I gotta say, this show is a little bit kinky, but I love the overall vibe of it, the aesthetic of it, more than I like it for those reasons, Those reasons don't hurt. But nah, just the overall vibe of this show is truly phenomenal. So she takes his blood. And actually ends up falling asleep there. And Ko kind of just lays there and looks at her and starts thinking to himself, starts realizing to himself, or at least admitting to himself that, all right, maybe the reason I'm so jealous isn't because I like her yet or anything, but I just kind of want to see her. I kind of want to be around her. Because, she really did, kind of break him out of his shell even a little bit already. So the fact that he feels this way is not too surprising, honestly. And after this scene, we actually transition to the next night, where we have the same problem yet again. He can't seem to find her. But eventually they do meet up, they find each other. And he reveals that, all right, we're not doing this anymore. I figured it out. Ta-da! And he shows a wrist receiver. Which I'm like, all right, these are kind of old school, but I like it. And he starts telling this story of how when he was a kid, he picked up a couple of these and he left one in a random spot, thinking to himself like, oh, I can't wait to have a conversation with whoever finds this, Isn't that going to be such a cool idea? So he leaves it there for a while. He doesn't get a response ever. He starts thinking to himself, like, maybe I don't want to call anyone. So he doesn't call, but he goes back to look for the other receiver, and he finds out that it's not there. And Natsuno just starts laughing at him for that story, and I'd start laughing too, because it's kind of sad, man. Ko doesn't have any friends whatsoever, and it's pretty apparent. He's like the definition of a loner, guys. So he's like, all right, stop laughing at me. And he gives her one. And, they go and test it out throughout the city. And it works wonders, And they start to have a little bit of fun with each other with it, I think he's finally starting to understand the purpose of, one of the reasons at least, of why she's doing this. To kind of help him to live a little more, to experience the call of the night, if you will. And they start having a bit of fun with each other. He's starting to loosen up a bit. And like I said, this is where we get that scene where they start flying through the sky again, and the song drops. I'm like, dude, I love this show. This show is a vibe. I was going crazy during that song. That song was great. The music in this show, on top of the visuals and the character designs, are chef's kiss, guys. Like, I don't really have a complaint with this show. And you guys might not think it from my videos, but I'm a pretty picky person when it comes to shows I like. Like, I'm a real nitpicky person. I try to be nicer on my videos, but I'm pretty picky. But I don't think there's anything I dislike about this show so far, and that's kind of crazy to me. That's pretty crazy. So she actually takes him to the school, and tells him that, hey, see, look, everything is different at night. You get a whole new perspective of everything at night. Even your school that you're so afraid of looks completely different and isn't scary anymore, isn't it? And he says, yeah, I think you're right on that. And she actually sucks his blood in this moment. And in a very different way, too, because before she said to do that, they kind of had to be in between sleep and awake, like right before they go to sleep is when it tastes the best. But in this moment, she just takes it right then and there. And even he comments like, oh, that felt kind of different this time. That felt kind of dirty. And it's here that he starts realizing that, you know, for all the perverse jokes she makes, for all the for her personality, she's really, really quirky. Which I like, though. I like that. I like quirkiness. It's called personality. And he starts realizing that, you know, maybe I can fall in love with this girl after all. So we actually go to the next day where Ko's actually out during the day walking around thinking to himself like, you know, I wonder what happened to this other transmitter that I had. I wonder who picked it up. And then speak of the devil, in that moment, his other transmitter actually turns on and starts making noise. He's like, wait a minute, why is this one working all of a sudden? And it gets revealed that the person that had the other one this whole time was the girl that confessed to him in episode 1. And that's how our episode ends, with her saying, Ko, what are you doing? So I'm really curious to know what that is. Obviously, I've seen her in the opening, guys, but I'm very curious to know, like, what's their relationship, you know? Obviously, I know she confessed to him, but what's the deeper meaning behind it? Like, have they known each other a long time? I'm going to assume they're childhood friends. I get that kind of feeling. But I don't know. I'm very interested in next week's episode, actually. This show has definitely hooked its claws into me. Or I guess you could say its fangs. And yeah, this is definitely my favorite show this season. It really is. I couldn't tell you why. It kind of came in like a wrecking ball and kind of just swept me off my feet. I really love it. I'm definitely going to read the manga, guys. I think I'm going to read the first volume tonight, actually. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk about that ending song real quick. Remember when I mentioned purposeful angles? That ending is definitely something. That ending, the visuals are definitely something. Let me tell you that much. But you guys let me know what you think of this show, guys. I love it personally. It's just such a beautifully, like, animated series that just puts a smile on my face every time. But if you have a different opinion, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. But that'll be it for today's episode, guys. So I hope you guys have a great day, week, month, and year. And until next time, just deuces and have a blessed day.